Welcome back to the Dynasty Football Maniacs. Today's episode, we're going to talk about the tight end rookies coming out in 2024. How exciting. So we're also going to start in reverse order on these guys here. We're going to start that. It's our new trend. We're going to start from the bottom, work our way to the top. Well,
Just like
we're
you
going
would do in life.
Yes, like we would do. I think this is the first time we ever agreed with the 10th spot. Like, I think it's always like we either have one up, one down.
Yeah,
This one we got it right on the thing. So we both went with Erick All. Uh
tied in you.
yep. So finished off his season with Iowa. Prior to that, he was with Michigan. He had a pretty good, decent season. I mean, he was more of a tight end blocker. I mean, the tight end class, it's hard to judge tight ends, I think, sometimes. Because a lot of them in college, they use them as blockers more than their downfield. And there's certain ones they focus on. So it's kind of harder to rank sometimes. But right now, you and me both agree that he's the number 10 guy.
I still think he'll be. I think he'll still be pretty good for a team that needs a tight end.
Anything from Iowa ends up being good.
That's that's the reason why I had him in the top 10. It's kind of hard not to at this point.
Yeah. And then our next one, we don't agree on. You have Jared Wiley, and I have Jaheim Bell.
Okay.
But it looks like you have Jaheim Bell at 8, and I
We
have Jared Wiley a little bit higher up.
we're
And we'll
just
get
reversed.
Yeah, we're just kind of reversed on that. So, do you have any specific reasons why you got Jared Wiley at 9?
Well, for a tight end, he had 8 touchdowns this past year, which you know how tight ends are in college. That's pretty impressive.
Right. That's why I have him higher up in my rankings a little bit.
Right, because like you said, doing tight ends, especially trying to figure out if you're not in the top, if you're not a top 1 or 2 tight end guys, the rest of them are kind of hard to judge upon because most of them, especially in some of the offenses in the college, a lot of them like to run the ball pretty significant. Now he had 40 receptions, 520 yards, and 8 touchdowns. So, and he had his longest touchdown was actually 81 yards. So, for a tight end to score 81 yards, that's pretty impressive.
Yes, it is. He didn't do too bad at Texas either. He had a few touchdowns at Texas. Not that many yards. He's probably mainly a blocker there at Texas in his early years, and then he transferred to TCU, and TCU he became the tight end. Um, so
Right.
nowadays,
I mean,
sometimes in college nowadays it's so different than what we remember back in the early 2090s, where players sometimes more stayed where they were at, where they started. So you got a lot of
and,
players that go from here to here. I mean, you kind of try to follow their trail.
and the dude is 6'6".
Yeah. So at the
He has
combine,
six six.
I thought they measured him 6'7" at the combine.
Well, 6'6", 6'7". That's still tall, and that is peak of what you want in a tight end
Oh
because
yeah.
if you look at another tight, I'm not saying that as you, I'm not saying he's going to turn out to be like these guys, but for instance, like you have Travis Kelce who's like 6'5", you have George Kittle who's like 6'5", you have Kyle Pitts who's 6'6". I mean, there seems to be a trend now in the NFL, like especially if you're a tall guy, that hey, if there's a zone coverage or something, I can just sit down here and I can box a guy out and catch the ball pretty easily because he's just a big boy.
Right.
Now, being his weight is 249, which is on the lower side of most tight ends, but I think he's still fine and at the combine he ran a 4.62, which that's pretty good for a tight end that size.
Yes, it is. And see, at that, you had Jared Wiley. I had Tanner McLachlan. So he is 6'5", 244 pounds. At the combine, he ran the 40 at 4.61. He's only played 2 years in college at Arizona, Pac-12. Pretty much led for the tight end there at team. He had 45 receptions, 528 yards, 4 touchdowns. That's pretty good for tight end. I mean,
Right.
and then the year before, his 2022 year, his sophomore year, he did the same. I mean, he had 34 receptions, 456 yards, and 2 touchdowns, not too far difference. He's a big body. So on the ranking side, I had him. See, I have Jared Wiley higher up than you do. I have him.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So in that lower spot, I put McLachlan.
Oh, okay.
Because I mean, he has a lot of high potentials. I mean, Tanner looks really good. He has all the high potentials of being a good tight end. It really depends on where he lands and what does he do in the NFL. I mean, I definitely think he's a better tight end than Erick All or Jaheim Bell. That's why I have him above them at sorry, my eyes are going out. Uh I have him at number 8. Jaheim Bell I have at 9 and Erick All at 10. You have Jaheim Bell at 8, Jared Wiley at 9, and Erick All at 10. And then number 7, you bring in AJ Varner, and I bring in Dallin Holker.
Oh.
But you have him at number 6, and I don't even have AJ on my list.
Oh, really?
So, I mean, I did look up some of his stats after I seen him on your list to kind of see where he was at. Um, I After looking at some stuff, I was like, yeah, I might have missed one. Maybe could have considered him. Um,
I mean, I mean, the other the other guy. I mean, I like the size he is. He's 6'6". I
yes,
noticed there's a.
245 pounds, tight end. He did really good at Michigan. He's more of a blocker at Michigan. He wasn't like a straight up touchdown tight end. I mean, he's more like a who was that guy that played for Georgia? Washington, you remember him? That went to
Darnell
Pittsburgh?
Washington.
Yeah, Darnell Washington. I was wanting him to be a real top receiver because of his size. I thought he had that potential, but he still ended up being that blocker for the run game. I
Right,
mean,
and it's kind of crazy because yeah, he was mainly a blocker, but when you're thinking about tight ends blocking, I mean, this is the reason why it's so hard to hit a home run on a tight end or something. It's because tight ends do a lot. They just don't go out there and catch the ball and score touchdowns. And they just also don't just, get their hands in the dirt and block the edge for the running back to run to the side. They do both. And that's the reason why it's just so hard to get you a top 5 tight end because they're always doing both. So when I see these kids that are, they're blockers and in college, I mean, yeah, that might scare me a little bit, but at the same time, you know, you never know. They could actually open up in the NFL. They might use them depending on what scheme they go to and what coach they go to. They could just have a different philosophy and they might be just open up and start scoring a lot.
now here's a sleeper, Dallin Holker. Played for Colorado State. He's 6'5", 225 pounds, tight end position. Now, he's not just a blocker. His stats even tell you he's not a blocker. And you look at him and you're like, okay. I think, and I know that's unfair that I rated him lower due to the conference strength that he played in. But I do have him in my top 10 because I think when he gets to the NFL, I think we're going to see more out of him. Now, when he played for Brigham Young, he wasn't as reception happy as he was with Colorado State. When he got to Colorado State, he had 64 receptions, 767 yards, 6 touchdowns. He also rushed for 1 yard, which ain't a huge thing, but it's still neat that they threw a rushing play in there. And that's probably when they went against Colorado, playing Deion Sanders. You want to throw that extra oomph in there. But he definitely he's under my radar as like a late pick. If he's out there, if no one's picked him up, and he looks like he lands on a good team, he could be a George Kittle, late rounder draft. I mean, George Kittle wasn't drafted early. I mean, no one thought he was going to be who he was. I mean, he has all the attributes to be that level. So yeah, and Kelsey, you got the same argument with Kelsey. Kelsey wasn't up there; he was in a low level, and he was in a non-power 5. But I can't rank him higher than that in my rankings right now because he is coming out of a different strength of schedule. Not saying that they're lesser than the Power 5, which in a way they are. I mean, that's how it is in football. I mean, the top Power 5 conference, or now Power 4 conferences, that's a whole nother topic. We'd have to take that offline.
No, yeah, well, we're not digging into that.
Not tonight, anyways. We will have an episode on that. We're going to talk about it just freeloaded. Before college football starts, we're going to have a separate episode away from our normal episodes where we talk a little bit about college, and we call them our short takes on what we think is happening in the future and what is going on at the college level. So look forward to that. So that is coming. That's a separate show lineage than what we're doing here. So it'll be almost like another podcast we'll be taping, but it'll be all shorts talking about college. But all right, let's get off that. I'm sorry. Because then we'll talk about this.
Hey, you're good. You gave it the right amount of love for that.
Yeah. So with that being said, if he lands at a good spot in the NFL, and I think it's a good spot, and I'm drafting in a dynasty, and I have 7 rounds in my dynasty because we do IDP, and I can grab this guy, he's on my radar. So he's on yours too, I see. So we both have him. I had him ranked a little lower than you. You had him ranked 6, which I think you put him in a perfect spot. I think it was hard between him and Ben Sinnott. I couldn't make up my mind. But then I see you had Ben Sinnott number 4. So
I mean, we were kind of in the same boat.
Yeah, I mean, and this is where, and I'm not trying to. Let me explain this. We're not football experts. We just do this because we enjoy doing fantasy football, and we try to learn what we can about it and understand who we want to have on our teams and who we want to play. We enjoy doing this. But when it comes to the tight ends on the depth, sometimes there's just not a whole lot of depth there to look at because a lot of times tight ends end up being just blockers. And we're looking to score points in fantasy. So we look for them gems that are laying out there that could be the next top 10 tight ends, because tight end spots are hard to fill in a dynasty. They're not an easy spot to fill on your team, and they're hard to control because when you got injuries, you have to put a tight end in. You have a tight end position. You have to have a tight end playing. You can't put a wide receiver there. So, and there's not many to go around to 12 teams. So you struggle picking that gem, and he's just one of them guys that I think could potentially. So I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what Holker does. I hope I ain't butchering his name. Dallin Holker.
He will forgive you.
Yeah, I want to make sure I'm saying even closely remotely the right way. We're not perfect.
Well, another thing that's kind of crazy is, basically after the first, especially in a startup dynasty draft, after you get your first few big names, after that, you're basically kind of just, you know, shooting a shot in the dark, hoping that you get a tight end that can at least, you know, evaluate them, elevate themselves to be a tight end one for you.
Right. Yeah, here it is. Let's see how we're supposed to say his name.
Say it.
Dallin Holker.
Dallin Holker. I did say it right, Dallin Holker. So that was
Dallin
good.
Holker.
Holker.
Yeah, you did good. You
Yeah,
did
did
good.
good. I didn't butcher the guy. Hey, vote for me. All right, so let's move on. No, I think he's a hot take. He's a good one we need to look at. I I wouldn't pick him up like in the first 5 rounds. I'm talking about 6th, 7th rounder, maybe late 5th rounder after you've done got your primary defensive players or your offensive players. I don't know if you would draft him this year on your redraft team because you don't even know what this guy's going to do yet. So he's not going to be. It really depends on where the professionals rank him in the tier is where he's going to land.
Well, I wouldn't mind taking a shot on him and putting him on my taxi squad.
Oh, definitely. I guess you and me are going to be gunning for him.
Damn it! Did I play my cards too early?
Oh, I think if some of our guys if we let this out, see, we have not advertised this in our dynasty leagues yet. I don't.
Oh, you know what? I ain't worried about them.
No, because if they get in our inside scoop, we might be in trouble. I mean, we'll be like, oh,
Look, as long as we can grow the brand, it's okay.
that's right. As long as we can grow the brand, we're going to introduce it to them guys, and they're going to be like, oh, wow. Yeah. Or they'll be like, oh my God, I always knew you didn't know what you're talking about.
Well, if they have strong opinions, we can always try to get them on the show.
Yeah, yeah. They're all welcome to come anytime. Yeah,
Right.
I think when we drop the wide receiver episode is when we need to share it on the amongst the dynasty group and see how it takes off. I think that'd be a perfect episode for that to happen.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
All right,
All right.
so
Let's go to the next one.
let's say so Ben Sinnott. I have him number 6. You have him ranked up number 4. Um, I can't disagree with you on that. I mean, it's really pick your poison at this point. To me, when I look at him, I put him in that position because that's where I seen him at. I mean, he's a big tight end too. He also plays fullback. So he played a dual position, fullback, tight end, 6'4", played with Kansas City State, Power 5 school. His
He's got some big hands too.
He has big hands and he has just as good
He,
ability as the previous player we just talked about, Dallin Holker. So
he has 10-inch hands.
I know hands. Let's not talk about hand sizes. All right,
But with a tight end, would you not want a guy with some big hands, especially when
yeah,
you're catching the ball?
yeah. So I mean, he's impressive. I mean,
To me, the reason why I have him high
and
is
and, I,
because
and like I
he's
said, I couldn't argue with you on that.
right. He's a really good red zone threat, especially with the size of being 6'6", 259 pounds, give or take.
Yeah,
And I mean, because when you look at the stats, okay, yeah, you can tell. It's like, okay, well, you can tell he looked like he, blocked a lot and played fullback some. But when you look at the receiving touchdowns, he's got 7, which with a big body like that, I mean, that's a great weapon to have if you're at the red zone. So
yes,
that's the reason why I like him, because he's got the height, he's got the weight, and especially when you're scoring 7 touchdowns in college as a tight end, That's tremendous value in my opinion.
I guess if I look at it now, after you're talking to me about it, and I'm looking at my list, I got Ben Sinnott at 6, and I have Jared Wiley at 4. I think I would actually swap them two out. I would probably drop Jared Wiley. I'm not going to put him as low as you had him at 9 because I still think he's better than Jaheim Bell.
Right.
But I would I after us walking through this and kind of talking about it, I think coming out of this show, I'd have to put Ben Sinnott at 4. I'd have to because I think Theo Johnson belongs where he's at. We both have Theo Johnson at 5, and he's another good tight end.
That's the reason why I have Ben Johnson at 5 since he is a big body guy.
Yeah. So let's look at some of his stats. Theo.
Well, that's the reason why, that's who I was talking about when I was explaining the reason why I have Theo at number 5.
Yeah, and he did good at Penn State. He stayed at Penn State his career. He's 6'6". His reception yards are not as high as the other guys, but touchdown values are the same. So he made what he made count. So when he got the ball, he took it in.
See, Ben Sinnott and Theo Johnson could both be a red zone guy. But Ben Sinnott, he was more of a receiving guy because they allowed him to be a receiving guy. Now he can block too because he did some blocking as well. But, you could go either way because when we're talking about this, I could just, the next day change my mind and be like, oh, well, I like Theo Johnson at number 4 while Ben is at number 5. But you can also, like, the next day, I could be like, well, I'm going to switch that back because I like the other guy. So, my opinion, you can't go wrong with either way.
Yeah, either way. I mean, I think we're both in agreement on that. I mean,
Right.
It's exciting because, like, in a fantasy league, you need to try to. Usually, you don't have that many spots on your roster for tight ends. You usually keep your primary tight end you're playing. You keep about 2, maybe 3 backups down on the list. What you do with some of them is you throw them on a taxi squad, especially the young ones that are coming off the taxi squad, because it depends on what league you play in. Taxi squads are for rookies in most leagues. Mine is a 2-year. I think yours is a 2-year too. So after 2 years, you got to pull them off that taxi squad. That means you got to cut players. So do you keep the guy or do you cut the guy? And that's a decision you have to make. I usually always try to put me a tight end down on my taxi squad that I think is a potential high hitter. And if he becomes a high hitter, then I throw him up. I have Tucker for Green Bay from last year. He's not done that great yet. But there was a couple flashes like I might keep him on the taxi one more year before I throw him to the bench. And if he shows more at Green Bay, as Jordan Love, which he's doing an excellent job at right now, continues to grow, he could.
Oh my God, the Packers! I swear,
They
just hit the quarterback pool, and every single time they just seem like they get it.
Yeah, and Tucker Kraft, he had his flashes, and like I said, I kind of hold on to him. He's still my taxi squad, but my tight ends are so weak right now. I mean, I don't have in my 2 leagues, both of them. Clement's my best. Well, David Schultz, I have him, but age is creeping up on him. Zach Ertz, age is creeping up on him. I'm trying to look for that tight end to fill them gaps. And tight ends are hard to get. So these guys, this class shows potential. I mean, we got a few potential hitters. So Theo Johnson looks interesting from Penn State. You had and after Theo, I have Jared Wiley. So we're back almost in agreement, just different orders. You got Ben Sinnott. Number 3, our 3 and 2 are swapped.
Let me guess. You got the Ohio State guy at number 2.
Not That wasn't. I did put him at number 2 because he played for Ohio State. I have
I
never in
figured.
fantasy football. I've never shown favoritism. And you got to say that's true because there was one year you thought I was a Dallas fan and I wasn't. You found out I was an Eagles fan, but you're like, why did you draft so many Dallas players? It was because I was winning. It was a year I took the
So
championship.
yeah,
So
but yeah,
I
we
took.
don't
I
want to talk about your fascist love for
let me tell
Ezekiel
you,
Elliott.
fantasy football changed my perspective. I almost kind of died watching NFL. I was a big Eagles fan when I was a youth. I'm still an Eagles fan at heart. Fly Eagles fly. And if they're in the Super Bowl, I'm rooting for them. If they're in the playoffs, I'm rooting for them. But now in fantasy, I'm rooting more for the player than the team. But I still buy the team product. So it's like I'm not going to go out and buy Dallas shirts. I'm going to buy Eagle shirts.
You look better in blue, in my opinion.
Oh, okay. Um, but when it comes to football players leaving college, going into the NFL, I'm more picking my players and I'm rooting on the players more so than I am the team. So I watch more games. So I guess it helps the NFL out because I'm more interested in where I'm watching because I'm looking for a certain player to do a certain thing. It makes it
Well,
exciting.
you can't even though you have a favorite team, you can't, just try to get your favorite players on
Oh no,
your
you'd
favorite
lose
team.
every. I watched a guy go in and take a perfect team, and I'm not going to name no names. This guy had a great team. And I looked
I
at this
know
team. Let's
I know
stop.
you're talking about.
Yeah, well, let me finish the story. This guy had the team. I sat there. Now, look, I bought into a league that had. I didn't draft a startup. They already had a year, and I bought in a low tier team because I like the challenge. I wanted the challenge. I took that team. Just I didn't care that I knew I was losing my $100. There was no way I was going to win with that team, and I knew that. But I wanted the challenge because I believed in the next 2 or 3 years I could build that to a championship team. Now, am I there yet? It's my second year in. I think this year I'm not the champion yet, but I am one close to being the championship. And I think next year will definitely be the run. If I get the run this year, hey, that just shows you that I'm not that bad at fantasy. But watch the guy take a team and pick it apart and put his favorite team on there. And gave away star players. Now he didn't finish in the top this year, but I was like, why would you do that? But I'll leave it at that. Don't pick your team. Now you can get heavy on a team, but don't get too heavy on the team because you got to remember there's bye weeks. So when you get
There's
too
a
heavy on a team, you can end up hurting yourself because you don't have enough players to play. It ain't like
I
you get to
believe
build your roster up.
I think it's best to have at least two players from the same team if you somehow they get traded to someone on the same team. But I think if you go a little bit over two, even go over three, I think you're fighting a dangerous battle there.
Yes, you are. You got to spread it out. So not to get off the rankings again. Here we go. We're going back to number 3. We had them swapped around. Number 2 and 3. I have
Mm-hmm.
you had Cade Stover as number 3 from Ohio State, and I have Javian Sanders. So I mean, it was a tough battle between the two. So when I look at it, let me tell you mine, and then you can come back and tell me that I was being biased. And I and I and I I won't I won't sit here and argue with you about it. So Cade Stovers for Ohio State, 6'4". He's actually listed for 2 spots, but he mainly played tight end. He was listed as a linebacker too. Um, his last 2 years at Ohio State was last year. Let's go with that. He had 41 receptions, 576 yards. Average yard carry was 14, and he had 5 touchdowns. The year before, he played in 13 games. He had 36 receptions, 406 yards. Average was 11.3, and he had 5 touchdowns. We don't want to count the years before that because there was other tight ends there, and he was second to them. And Sanders We look at his stats. Tight end for Texas, same size, 6'4". Yes, he has better yards. 2 years back to back, 600. Okay. But no, I still went with Cade Stover. So I still like Cade Stover's at number 2.
Yeah.
I mean, we could it's a tit or tat on that. I mean, either one is a good pick. Either one has a whole part. Look at Ohio State, how many wide receivers they had. Texas had Xavier Worthy. Now, yes, he did great at the combine, but I do not think he's like that great. He's not even in my top 10 rookies for wide receivers. I just he
He's
hurt
not
himself.
mod.
Yeah, he hurt himself running. I mean, I get that. Yes, it's the fastest time that was recorded. Bo Jackson's technically the fastest. Let's not take it away from the guy. He might not did it officially at the combine, but he was the fastest. And I get it.
Yeah.
It's the combine. I get it. So well, I'm not going to argue that. And yes, I'm a Bo Jackson fan. So take that. I don't care. The guy was
Hey.
great.
Hey, I won't judge you on that.
That guy was great, hands down.
I can agree with that.
I respected him in baseball and in football. So that with it all coming to an end and to the head, we already know who our 2s and 3s are. I had Sanders at 3, Cade Stover's at 2. You had Sanders at 2 and Cade Stover's at 3. The number one guy, if anybody ain't figured it out, you ain't been watching college football. And you ain't been watching the NFL. And that's Brock Bowers. Wow. If he doesn't come into the NFL and do anything, I just don't see that happening. Now, any one of these tight ends below that we mentioned could be just as good as Brock Bowers. And that's my curiosity because no one thought Sam Laporta was going to do what he did. He was like, okay, you did this. Now, what is Brock Bowers going to do? Now, I think if he goes to the Chargers, we could see just another great performance by a rookie. And then everybody's going to be like, well, I thought you always have to wait a couple of years for tight ends. Is this a new trend? But I don't think it's a new trend. I just think it's just a certain timing. You got 2 great tight ends coming out about the same timing. I mean, you can't really. I don't know.
Well, I mean, the dude. I mean, like we said with the Chargers, I mean, they have no receivers in the receiving room, like we talked about in the last episode. I think Brock Bowers would have almost a Sam Laporta year if he definitely goes to the Chargers and they don't get a receiver, which I do think they will, but I don't think it'll justify, after losing Keenan Allen, after they traded him and, cut Mike Williams. I think Brock Bowers could actually be, a top 15 tight end and even top 10, which is crazy to think, especially because it's the, tight ends, rookie tight ends especially are like, they don't really do much.
No.
And it's crazy, but I just think, this could be a rare occurrence that you have 2 back-to-back years, you had a rookie tight end do something great.
And I honestly think this year we're going to see 3 good tight ends come out. I don't know who's the other 2 that's going to be the shine, but I think it's someone in our top 10s. I think this year has just as good a year as it did last year for tight ends. And there was a lot of good tight ends that came out last year. Just looking at the professional tiering rates, the first rookie falls into tier 2, which is Brock Bowers. And that's understandable. That's his first year out. You can't really put him in tier 1 yet. Tier 1 is Sam Laporta, Trey McBride, and Mark Andrews. Hands down. Tier 2 is consistent of Dalton Kincaid, TJ Hawkinson, Brock Bowers, Kyle Pitts, Travis Kelce, George Kittle. The next rookie that ends up in a tier, I'm going to look it up real quick. Just take a second. Got the list right in front of me, but got to filter it out so I don't give you outreach information here. So the next one falls all the way down to tier 5, and that's Javian Sanders. He is in tier 5. And the next that we have called out don't fall in until tier 8. You have a bunch of them in tier 8. So a lot of the ones we mentioned today, Dallin Holker, Theo Johnson, Cade Stover, Ben Sinnott, Jaheim Bell, all in tier 8. Oh, there's other players that we need. AJ Varner is there. So that was in your top 10. One of the guys I had on my outside is in there, and that's Nesbitt, Bryson. I was kind of debating putting him in the top 10. I didn't. So that's not too bad for a tight end. It'd be interesting to see what happens next year with this rookie class. There's a lot of good tight ends, but then you got to also look at the top end of the tight ends are all aging. So you got a lot of 30-year-olds out there, and you got Evan Ingram, you have George Kittle, you have Travis Kelce, you have Dalton Schultz, you have Zach Ertz, you have let me think some other older ones. Mark Andrews. These guys got a few more years to go. And a lot of them already have the replacements, but that gives an opportunity for some of these other ones to move up.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I agree. I agree with what you're talking about. Because, well, I believe that, right now, Sanders is projected, he's projected actually to be a top 10 in the second round.
Oh, okay.
That's what I saw. Now, if that actually happens, that's a different story. But from what I've been seeing, Sanders, that's the reason why I had him over Stover. Because, you had Stover over Sanders. The reason why I have, because, a couple of years down the road, draft value might not really matter, but draft value actually really, especially in the NFL, and it pertains to Dynasty too. Draft value really kind of matters, especially for any player. So, like, if you get somebody in the second round, they especially a tight end in the second round, they have the potential, depending on where they go. If they don't have a guy already, or if they have a guy but they still have like 3 more years or whatever, I think Sanders could be a tight end 1, and that might be crazy for a lot of people, but I mean, from what I saw, I really liked this tape, so I wanted to get back to the reason why I had Sanders over Stover, but I agree with you 100%. It's just really difficult to find tight ends, especially on some rookies. Like, they're hyping up Brock Bowers like he is the next Kyle Pitts. Because, Kyle Pitts got so much hype.
Oh, he did.
So much hype.
He was so much hype that I drafted him in the 4th,
Yeah.
5th round when he first came out.
Yeah,
So,
they called him a unicorn for a reason.
Yeah.
But yeah, I totally get it. It's this reason why my question of the video is going to be pretty interesting. That I would like everyone's opinion about.
Go with it.
And
What is it?
Oh, so you're ready for the question now?
Yeah, give me the question.
All right. So the question, and this is going to be, I'm hoping there's a lot of different answers that I get from this, but we already know Brock Bowers is going to be the guy in this class. But what I really want to know, I just want one name. People in the comments, unless you want to give me multiple names, that's cool too. But my question is, which tight end is going to be the sleeper in the class and break out and be great?
I believe it's going to be Holker. I think that's my big sleeper.
So that's your big sleeper.
I believe he might be equivalent If not, could pass. Let's see if he finishes in with the rest of the big tight ends. I believe you'll see him above the top.
I'm
He's
gonna
my
th-
sleeper.
mine. I'm gonna throw my answer out there. Mine is Theo Johnson. I just love
Okay.
I just love his red zone presence a lot, and
So they got Theo Johnson ranked 75, and they got Dallin Holker ranked 79. And I think that Dallin Holker will finish in the top 20 next year. Where do you think Theo Johnson will finish?
you put me on the spot.
Well, let's make a little game out of this. Where do you think he's gonna finish?
You know,
It don't have to be top 20.
I don't know if I'm gonna be as bold as you.
Okay. Be realistic
But
then. You know I'm always laying it bold out there. So
I think he could at least finish as I really think he could at least finish as the 27th.
okay, that's a good pick. 27th. Yeah.
I think if especially if he goes to the right situation, I think he could finish at least 27th.
Okay, I'm good with that. I can go with that.
Heck yeah.
All right. So it's definitely been good to kind of cover the rookies. If you guys like the content, please hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe and share it. Share is caring.
Sharon is very caring.
Yes, don't forget to share us. Definitely like to hear any of your guys' feedback. You guys can comment down below. If you guys have a suggestion or want to know something or want us to cover a certain topic, we'll do it. I think our next episode, we're going to rank the IDP part of it, and that's the defensive players.
That's
The
gonna be
brute, the
interesting.
muscle. So
That's gonna be interesting.
yeah, so we're not going to do our typical top 10. We're going to mix up the defensive backs, linebackers, and the DL lines. And the reason why we're going to do that is in fantasy, you have three positions. You have DL, linebacker, and defensive backs. Your defensive backs consist of safeties,
And cornerbacks.
and quarterbacks. Your linebackers consist of your middle linebacker and some
And
of your
outside linebackers.
your outside linebackers. But see, some of the DL is your defensive tacklers, edge also play linebacker. So a lot of them share that dual spot. So it's kind of hard. Like one will be ranked here on a linebacker, but then ranked down here on the DL, but they play both positions. And we thought this out a little bit before we decided to do the rankings on this, but we think it's easier just to put them all in a group, rank out who we think the top 15 defensive players for fantasy, for Dynasty coming out for 2024. We're going to do the NFL side, what we think last year, and then we'll do the rookies coming out. And then after that, we'll be getting closer to the draft timing. And I will tell you right now, when like earlier, Austin mentioned how draft position matters. I think this year I did not listen so much to the mock drafts because last year I paid so much attention to it and I counted on so much to happen. And then half of the mock drafts I heard didn't even come out to be. So this year I have done less listening of these mock drafts because actually they just tick me off. And it's not that that's not right or wrong. It's some people like it. Me, I don't. I'd rather hear what people have in their own projections. So I listen to a lot of the other shows, like what they have, their rank, their top 15 or their tiered out running backs. I'm not so listening to where projections are because the end of the day, when we give these projections right now, they're not going to be the same after draft. After draft, it's going to be solely where these players land, who they're playing behind. It becomes a whole different level of ranking. So some of the players we have in the top 10 might not be there after the draft. And when we start going into spring ball and everything starts rolling after the draft and they do that rookie camp and You see who gets cut, who goes to practice teams. Your rankings change a lot. Now, you don't give up on a player that goes to a practice team. Practice team means that that player still has a chance to play. And some of them do well. A lot of times the teams will sign these guys, these rookies, they don't make the cut because it was a 53-man roster. They end up getting put on a taxi squad. They play on that taxi squad, or they call it something different, their practice team. And then they get called back up, just like the majors. You got the minor league, they get called up, they play. So, I mean, and they have veterans on theirs. We don't. Our taxi squads are just rookies. If we did that, we'd have people out there that would pile up on veterans and put them all on their taxi squad, and you wouldn't have no players out there to draft. You'd be struggling. I'd be one of them guys. I'd get like 6 quarterbacks. I got 6 starters, and they're all down on my taxi. Never. I'd never lose a game.
You could sell them.
I try to trade them, sell them. Yeah, that's the only reason I never let that one get voted on. I would never let them go with the veterans. I'd be that's just too much.
No, that's just way too much.
Yeah, you got to be able. I think our roster is 48 on the total. I'd have to count it up, but we're playing offense and defense. So you have that in your taxi squad, and you get. It depends on what league you're in. My league, I have 6 IRs. You have 4. And the reason why is your defensive and offensive players get hurt. And it's a regular, you'd be surprised. No matter, you could have 6 IR benches and all 6 will be filled up, and you still on your bench have 4 guys injured. It's like, because you don't want to give up your stars because it's a dynasty. It ain't a redraft. Once you give them up, they're gone. People will pick up a broken player in a heartbeat, especially if they're a good player.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
You got Nick Chubbs and he went down and you know he's out for the rest of the season. You're not going to throw him out on the waiver wire for a dynasty team to get him. I mean, if he comes back, he's dangerous. So you can stash him where you can stash him and suffer. So
right.
All right. I know we almost ended it, but we'll end it now. If you like, hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe. And please keep watching and share. Sharing is caring. And
sharing is caring.
All right. See you next time, Austin.